What starts here changes the world. I have a few suggestions that may help you on your way to a better world. And while these lessons were learned during my time in the military, I can assure you that it matters not whether you ever served a day in uniform. It matters not your gender, your ethnic or religious background, your orientation, or your social status. Our struggles in this world are similar, and the lessons to overcome those struggles and to move forward, changing ourselves and changing the world around us, will apply equally to all. So here are the 10 lessons I learned from basic SEAL training that hopefully will be of value to you as you move forward in life. Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. During SEAL training, the students are all broken down into boat crews. Each crew is 7 students, 3 on each side of a small rubber boat, and 1 coxswain to help guide the dinghy. Every day, your boat crew forms up on the beach and is instructed to get through the surf zone and paddle several miles down the coast. In the winter, the surf off San Diego can get to be 8 to 10 feet high, and it is exceedingly difficult to paddle through the plunging surf unless everyone digs in. Every paddle must be synchronized to the stroke count of the coxswain. Everyone must exert equal effort, or the boat will turn against the wave and be unceremoniously dumped back on the beach. For the boat to make it to its destination, everyone must paddle. You can't change the world alone. You will need some help. And to truly get from your starting point to your destination takes friends, colleagues, the goodwill of strangers, and a strong coxswain to guide you. If you want to change the world, find someone to help you paddle. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchausen crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchausen boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CARES Project podcast. We are here with John Davidson. He is a director, did some documentaries, moved from Hollywood. He met my daughter, but I also know him more recently with the work he's been doing with KENLEE, who's the daughter of Joy Zuraff, who's got her child medically kidnapped. And so, I mean, you want to kind of introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, so I'm sort of a former Hollywood guy that got awakened and started pursuing all of this fraud that's rampant across the country. And I spent 25 years working in Hollywood, making movie trailers and commercials and special effects for shows like Big Bang Theory and a few other things. And then 2020, I started trying to help doctors and nurses on the front line because I thought it was a civic duty to help them. And then I started discovering all the fraud around things like hydroxychloroquine. So I made a documentary called Epidemic of Fraud. And you can see it at epidemicoffraud.com. And that won Malibu Film Festival last year, Best Documentary. And have been just kind of pursuing this through my website, brokentruth.tv. And also I have a nonprofit called magicfeathers.org that I do advocacy work through. So that's me.
Oh, nice. That's, I think a lot of people started to wake up en masse during COVID. Like, I mean, I always knew that politicians they were lying.
Yeah.
Right. I never wanted to be a politician. I never wanted to get involved in politics. I always liked doing my own thing and so forth. But now we're at the point where it's affecting our lives in a very negative way and
Right.
so forth. And so, I mean, now we have to do something about it. And so, kind of want to give us a little bit more on kind of what your road was coming to where you are now, like what got you out of Hollywood and so forth, and what you started to see in particular that went wrong.
I think initially I was very averse to being around anybody that was still, pushing the narrative. And it was so obvious to me what was going on by June of 2020 when the study came out that said hydroxychloroquine was deadly, and then it was retracted, but the retraction was barely noticed. At the time, you were dealing with the George Floyd riots, and that was consuming the news, but it also was burying the evidence about these studies that were just completely fraudulent. And then I was shocked to see that there was no punishment for the scientists, and I use that term very loosely, that said that this drug based off tonic water was deadly. And it shocked me, that if this was going to happen with such a simple drug, then why is everything else is now circumspect? And that's, I started kind of helping these doctors who were in that free, health care movement, medical freedom, let me say that like that, and to try to help them. And because unfortunately a lot of them were older, so they were kind of not in the system as much as a lot of the younger doctors that were highly political, which was also weird to me. So, the older doctors needed a lot of technical help. So I tried to help them, with that kind of stuff. And, by end of 2020, I'd made a preliminary version of Epidemic of Fraud. Then I walked out on the networks in 2021, early on. And I think God just wanted me to get out of it. So that's what I did. And then I spent the next 2 or 3 years kind of researching and kind of working in the shadows a little bit. Then in 2022, I started doing brokentruth.tv or brokentruth.com. And it was amazing how certain things would happen that were almost supernatural, just the way certain people would appear to me that needed help in the weirdest way. And so I just started doing that, giving them attention to what they were doing. And some of those people ended up in the movie that I actually released in 2024. And after that, I haven't really looked back from Hollywood. I love my friends in that arena, but I think it's difficult to maintain tight relationships with people who refuse to hear anything that you say. So
I think we can all relate to that over these last few years, right? A lot of people have lost a lot of connections, friends, family, and so forth as a result of the madness. So, yeah.
I hope that they have good lives and that they're happy. And at some point, not everybody goes through the door of knowledge at the same time. There's a long line, and some people are at the front and some are at the back. So I'm just hoping that they're just stragglers. And I do think that there were people that were aware of what was going on, but they were just terrified to speak out, and especially in my world, because, if you vote a certain way or think a certain way, and you let that be known, then you're out. So, it's just the nature of the beast. And now I'm sort of in this other world where I'm, more apt to text Mickey Willis or Matt Guthrie than I am, any of my old peeps in Hollywood. And that's good. I mean, I like those guys, and I'm grateful for the work they do, and they're very talented, and they kind of push the envelope so that the next generation of sort of indie filmmakers have a bar set for them, make things look as good as they can look, and invest in equipment and still learn the tools, but now you're doing it for a different purpose. And so that's kind of where we're at. And so when a story like the Zuraff case in Florida landed in my lap just last week, I jumped the shark, man. I was like, oh, this is awful. And the more I looked into it, the more I was like, wow, these things she's being accused of were very easily disproven. How is this going through a court? And how have they taken this kid for 2 years when the facts that were presented to the court were clearly fraudulent?
Right.
I mean, they said she wasn't giving drugs. Well, there was a total record of her giving drugs for CF. So what is this about? CF Foundation says, oh, it's you can do what you want. You can pick your own pulmonologist. It doesn't have to be a CF clinic. But then when she doesn't do that, she's punished for it. It's a really interesting case because it intersects quite a few different areas of concern that we have as a society, like, medical freedom, parental rights, parental choice, electronic medical records being used to create like scarlet letters on families so that everywhere they go, they're tormented no matter where they go. And how politics gets mingled with, medicine and pharmaceutical lobbying. And it really is an interesting case that brings light to a lot of these things that happen in the darkness. So, it's been an interesting week and a half. We've gotten a lot of attention, a lot of great people like Brian Festa and Key West Jess and Denise Cruz have been big advocates for getting attention to this. There's a lot of people in the higher echelons of government, both state and federal, I think, that are paying a lot of attention to this. And just because they don't speak out doesn't mean that they can't help, and they aren't helping. So we're grateful for any attention that this gets. And people can go and see it at freekenlee.com, KENLEE.com. And so what we're doing now is we're creating a series of stories that one by one breaks each finger of the hands that took those children. And by breaking fingers, I don't mean hurting anyone. I mean, we're just exposing the fraud. We're showing step by step, this is how the drug works. This is a black box warning. It was not, in the market that long. So the long-term details aren't known. The mother had clear records showing that she was taking care of her daughter, and just, things like that. So luckily in this case too, they had the most unbelievable body cam footage from the armed taking of her child, that
Oh yes.
to see those people behaving, smiling and grinning and enjoying themselves.
And
I mean, frankly, it just appeared to be demonic.
oh yes, and she's got a lot more evidence that I've looked at, and this is what was done was atrocious. Like I've experienced firsthand experience with this because my oldest daughter, Kaysha, was taken by Child and Family Services without provocation. I lost all parental rights. I ended up getting back parental rights and got full custody after 3.5 years. After my lawyer told me I was going to lose, everybody told me I was going to lose. And I walked into the court, said over my dead body. Everybody was like, but I went and figured it out, read the acts and everything else like that. I went to the government, the media, and other interested parties, all in a very short time with well documented evidence. They just backed away, right? Because I was like, we want investigation. They didn't want investigation because
Never.
it's what needs to be done. But when I saw Joy's case, I instantly saw what was going on because the mindset of the people are identical no matter where I look at. They have very self-entitled. They disregard the parent, and when they want to take that child, because there's a lot of financial benefit to doing this, because they need to justify their budgets and everything else, and they have all these different private agencies that are profiting off of this. They want to make sure that they continue to keep it that way, and no matter what she does, it's always wrong. And it was the same in my case, same in many other cases. And I read a statistic, like 83% of the time that they're taking a child, it's unwarranted. And there's a structural problem here that has to be dealt with. Giving her a child back is great. We want the kids to be given back. But the government has to fix the structure. The controls are non-existent. They need to have an effective method of controlling and accountability so that we don't have these problems going forward.
I agree. It's like I said, it's an intersection of quite a few different things on this case. And yeah, you're right. Some of the attitudes of these DCF workers are just abhorrent. I believe that there needs to be some sort of element of protection for, kids that are in situations like Jenny in Forrest Gump. You know what I mean? There are cases where children are in neglectful and abuseful homes, like, where some child has been locked in a cage for 6 months. I mean, these cases are frankly probably harder for these guys to pursue. So a low-hanging fruit like Joy, who merely questions a drug that's got similar and identical ingredients in some cases to a drug that caused her daughter to have allergic reactions, that's not bad parenting. That's good parenting, and we're punishing that. And I got to tell you, Florida maybe is in a mess now because you start rounding up middle-class families in HOA neighborhoods in a big suburban area filled with voters. They're going to flee or they're going to vote you out. And, it's also been interesting because I didn't know this, but Florida is a two-party consent recording state. So a person is not allowed to record, say, a doctor without their permission. And in that kind of situation, that's how the darkness thrives. Other states like Iowa, I just interviewed Grega Gomez, who was in an almost identical situation with her daughter that has CF. And she beat the state after 6 months of them, forcibly removing her child from her home. Luckily, she had family the kid could stay with. So that spared the child of, experience in foster care. But another area too, like what you went through, the system is designed to best serve wealthy people with deep pockets to fund hundreds of thousands of dollars lawsuits and defense cases. And when confronted with that, the state backs away because they don't have the resources to pursue that, even in a case where it's genuinely merited or warranted to pursue a DCF case. So that's how you end up with this whole Epstein mess. Who was going to prosecute him? Where was DCF when his island was rolling in the Virgin Islands or whatever? So that is another really important detail. Like, what about families that are right but don't have the money to pay for an advocate that can properly demonstrate that? It's a big problem with the system, and then kids get thrown in foster care. And I just posted an article on freekenlee.com that has a documentary that discusses Florida's privatized child foster care system, which I didn't realize it was private, which is even more messed up.
I was actually looking at some of the how these agencies are funded, and the state agencies are actually funded by HHS, right? They filter
Yeah.
down federal funding to the state agencies, and whenever you have federal funding, it never comes with no strings attached. And this is a problem because when you have HHS dealing with the pharmaceutical company, and then you have them dealing with like family matters and taking custody of children, that is always a bad issue because you can see some of the things that they're pushing on children and how the politicization or the agenda being pushed within the narratives, like here in Canada, for example, and you're seeing this happening in states as well. If you don't agree with your child being transitioned, they'll come and take your kid, right? So you have like all these pharmaceutical lobbyists that are going at HHS to get their procedures and so forth pushed through. But then if you don't agree with it, the same agency that is funding the medical systems and so forth is funding the places that take away your children. You see how this is a conflict of interest. Like, this
Right.
is disastrous. And this is where, I mean, I looked at even some of what Dr. Jim Thorpe was and his wife were bringing up about HHS, and I was like, those two should never be together. They should not. And first of all, the federal government shouldn't be funding state agencies in the first place.
Right. Right, especially when what you're funding is the theft of children from good homes. It's a mess, all these systems. And another area that's annoying to me is that how are we in 2026 still having judges that prioritize the statement of a doctor, hearsay, over a parent? Why do judges automatically defer to doctors? Have we not learned anything from COVID, from safe and effective? I mean, this is Florida, where supposedly they've rejected the mRNA platform vaccines for being unsafe and ineffective. But yet every doctor in the state was almost behind that, or was behind it, and probably still pushes it. But that, despite those lies, they still trust the doctor. And it's a logical fallacy, appeal to authority. And judges, maybe because they consider themselves to be an authority, and most of society does, are more susceptible to appeal to authority logical biases or
And
fallacies.
yes, and there's a place for them, but they can't override the parent. Like when my daughter, after she was
Right.
in a domestic situation and they put her in a mental facility instead of giving her the help that you need in domestic violence, I went and talked to the doctor. I said, the drugs you're putting on are making her worse. And I said, I don't care what you say because your degree as a doctor doesn't override my experience of raising my child and knowing her entire life. And what you're doing is making it worse, and you're going to take it off. Otherwise, I'll go to whoever I need to go to. And he was like, no, they did it. They let her out. Because I was like, absolutely not, because you don't have that right. And
Right.
what we need to reevaluate the way that we deal with children. Because I was talking to a couple of people about this. You should say that and in the United States Constitution, it says that you can't have any deprivation of life or liberty without due process of law. Now, when you look at this, when you take a child away from a parent, you can potentially take them away for 18 years of their life and do irreparable harm. You're looking at, in Canada, life in prison is 25 years. And some you can get parole after 10, 15, or 20 years, or not at all. But either way, you're having people that are murdering people that get less of a sentence than children being taken away from their parents. And then they have irreparable harm done for the rest of their life. So when you're looking at that type of deprivation of liberty, it should be equal to the constitutional protections that you have in a criminal law process. Because when you look at the way that the DCF cases, you're guilty until proven as, yes, in times that there is probable cause where there's severe harm being taken to the children, they should be dealing with that. But then those should also carry criminal penalties. Because if you're harming your child, you should go to prison. It shouldn't be like, oh, we're just taking your kid. If you're putting cigarettes out on your children or sexually abusing them, you need prison. Prison. And the fact that they refer the police to these child protection agencies instead of investigating these crimes, that's a huge problem.
I agree. Yeah,
So,
it's I Florida needs a lot of reform. It's nice to see that Florida, in a lot of ways, is at the forefront of some of the bigger issues, but still a lot of problems there. And whoever runs for office, for the governor or for Congress of that state or Congress within the state, these need to be addressed. And also, I think we have a big problem with the judiciary in general. We have issues with the DOJ considering parents to be terrorists. This. I mean, who's running the show here, guys? So it's complicated, and I feel like it was worth my effort to swing as hard as I could for this family, because frankly they deserve to be reunited, and it was wrong that the state did what they did, and maybe they're running now because they don't want to admit they made a mistake, or maybe there's some sort of financial liability. Maybe there's a lawsuit that could be filed against the state for what they did to her, because that's 2 years of their lives removed forever. And this is not just little years. These are fundamental child development years, 5 to 7.
oh yes, I get it. Like my youngest daughter, I haven't seen her for 5.5 years. She's going to be
Now?
7. Yes, my youngest daughter, she was taken because of my whistleblowing. And they used my family matter. They weaponized it to destroy me. The same judge was dealing with the COVID case and the family matter. And my daughter was already abducted, which is a crime in Canada, by her mother. And they used that to punish me. And I mean, nothing I did right. There was fraud, forged documents, stole my house, put it in front of a judge because they were towing the political line. Right? And what we're seeing here is there is no rhyme or reason for the judicial system now. And there needs to be straighter checks and balances. We have to take control of it. But with Joy's case that's going on, what they're worried about is that it's going to break open a dam that will never be able to be put back together, because what they did was so egregious. And it was systematic failure, not just in Florida, but it goes all the way back to South Dakota through multiple states. And you're seeing how one state and the other state are continuing to fail these children crossing state lines. This is not just a state level issue. This is a federal issue, because you're getting other jurisdictions that are involved in this. And that is no. You start crossing state lines, and you're looking at RICO issues that are taking place within government agencies. And this is what they're afraid of.
So you're not granted any visitation rights with your child?
They gave No, they said that on paper I have supervised visits, but there's a no contact order, and my ex had blocked me off of everything. And they're realistically holding her hostage by threat of police force, because these are the same jurisdiction where I was strapped to a bed and drugged against my will, and they would use any. They've been trying to arrest me for a very long time, and I pay child support for a child I could never see. I have no way of contacting, and so forth, right? And being financially destitute, traveling 8 hours, it's not even feasible. They left me homeless, right?
Kaysha, are you allowed to visit your sister?
Nope.
So again,
No,
it's a
I'm not allowed to see her. I'm not allowed to have pictures or wait, can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm not allowed to have like pictures or phone calls or like audios, like visits, nothing. And I'm just the sister, so like there's no reason for them to do that. Like I have a legal right to see my sister, but they completely cut me off too. Like we can't even see like anything of her online because they've shut down like all their social media so that and don't post anything about her. So like my dad said, like he pays for a daughter he can't see, and I know nothing about her. If we saw her on the street, we wouldn't even know it was her. Like she's gonna be 7 this month, and we have no clue. Like we haven't seen her since she was 16 months old.
Unbelievable. I'm sorry to say, Canada is the worst. And I never would have expected it, but here we are. I've dealt with cases like this in Norway. Norway's Barnevernet abducted two homeschooled children because they were playing in the snow and during school hours, and somebody reported them. They didn't get their kids back for 18 months.
Wow. Yeah, see,
Maybe they
like
got one visit a month.
I'm not surprised because I got taken in like a similar manner when I was a kid, and this was like in the 90s because I was born in 97. I'm 28 years of age. I'm going to be 29 in March. So like I everything that people are seeing now, I'm like I've been knowing this and understanding this. It's like and my like I was made a permanent ward of the crown. So you can't get your kid back after that. But my dad was one of two. The other one was a woman to get his kid back. And that, like I said, this happened to me in the 90s. So it's like it shows, who my dad is, but also like how what he did to do that works. But it's really unfortunate because they don't like the people who are responsible for doing this, they don't want the people to actually get help. They, like you said, unless you have hundreds of thousands of dollars and you're a person who doesn't know how to do this, you're not going to get your kids back. So it's like when someone like my dad comes along and he's like, "Hey, I done this like 28 years ago. I know what to do. I have the process." They want to destroy that person and shut them out because they have a vested interest, a financial and other vested interests to keep these children away from their parents. And if they realize that they can help themselves and also give consequences to the state for what they've done, a lot of people are going to be in a lot of problems. So, it's really sad to see stuff like this happen to Keeley and their family and all the other people that happens because it's like they have the ability to do something. They just don't know and they're being punished. And when you're a person like that being punished, you're so focused on the punishment. It's so hard for you to see like the outside, like that there's a process that you can take. And that's where they
Right.
want to keep people.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm fortunate that my family has been spared a lot of this, but I think it's still important, even if you're not personally affected by a lot of this stuff, that you speak out, that you make others aware of it. And so that's what I'm doing. That's what you're doing, and you are affected by it. And, so I'm sorry to hear that about your youngest.
Yeah. I mean, this is the tactic. Like last 6 years, whenever I did something, they punished my kids, right? Because they knew that I wasn't going to stop. I can't stand injustice, like this kind of wickedness, like especially from the government. I can understand somebody who was starving trying to steal food from the store because they're starving. But like harming people for profit and stealing people's kids, this
Yeah.
is no, there's no excuse for it. So I mean, it's tough. And with Joy's situation, when it came across my like, I was thoroughly disgusted when I saw this, and so I went to start helping her. And the amount of pushback that I get so much like pushback and persecution for helping people to get their children. I was trying to teach people to do the same types of things that I did because a lot of the times they're going to push you into a position where you have no money. They're going to push you into a position where the lawyer's going to back out. I keep hearing this over and over again. But there are things that people can do to help themselves because who has a better vested interest to get their kids back than the parents, right? And so I some people are fortunate to find an actual good lawyer that will be there to stand up and there are people to support them. But a lot of the times they do a good job of isolating them or put predatory people around them. It's terrible. I can't stand seeing it. I can't live in a world like
I know. It's it's a sheep amongst the wolves kind of situation. But there are developments that are occurring that I find to be interesting. The Epstein files are showing how these people operated. They're showing the comfort that they had with really bad behavior. And now they didn't think they'd ever be exposed for it. So heads are rolling right now, but no prosecutions. And that's still problematic.
this. Just before I know she wants to say something, so I'm just going to say it quick. I talked to Sheriff Richard Mack about this a while ago, and the petition for redress of grievances, which I was teaching people to do in the manner in which it was supposed to be done when the Constitution was written. Like I looked up the rules for legislative procedures for the United States, and then looked at the Westminster parliamentary system as well. So, in the 10th Amendment, anything that wasn't given to the states or to the federal government, that right rests with the people. And some of these crimes are treasonous in nature with what you're seeing.
Sure.
And the people, this is the mechanism for them to get those investigations to go forward. And things like of a structural issue, like with what's going on in Joy's case and other cases, and this is why I was working with her to do this, is to bring these things forward because there are certain things. Because one, her and her child, they're both being tortured. I don't care what anybody says. This is torture, minimum cruel and unusual punishment. This is torture because the worst thing you can do to a parent, a loving parent, is to take away their child unjustly and then make them watch as you harm their child. It is better to kill that person because you can only kill them once. And they know that their child is being destroyed and irreparable harm is being done. So they're taking this and then they're profiting. This needs to stop. And the people have to be the ones to push it forward. Because I tell people, you have the right to instruct your government. The government is there to do the will of the people. When you're working as a public official, it doesn't matter what country you are in, your government, they don't have rights. They're public servants. They have a job description. They don't have the same rights as the average person because they're exercising a function for the people. They don't get to refuse to safeguard your right, but they do because they've gotten so complacent. But people need to sit down and start telling them and showing them with their actions that we're not backing down. We're not taking this. You're going to do your duty, or there's the door, because I didn't read anywhere in any constitution that says that they could go ahead and commit these crimes or allow these crimes to happen and do nothing.
I agree.
Didn't see it.
And that's why this case, I think, is getting a lot of attention because it does hit a lot of nerves. And Florida, and I think the citizens of Florida are generally pretty proud of the state and how it's taken positions on a lot of these medical issues that we've covered the last 5 years. So when they see, hey, wait, we're doing what? It normally doesn't get reported. You don't see these things in the news. The Grega case in Iowa that I talked to today, there was no real media coverage of her story and beating the DCF, or DHS is what they call it up there. She was totally ignored by the media. Why is that? Why is it, why is it the media obsesses about Trump tweeting and not anything of, merit? I mean, that's the long and the short of it is all this Trump stuff is just a distraction. Or whether it was Trump or Biden or whoever, it's almost like this is the presidencies or straw men to distract the population from the roaches that commit horrors in the shadows. So the hope here is that Monday we have a big crowd, and we've got a lot of candidates from the state that are, descending on Milton, Florida, Monday at 8 a.m. And we're going to prevent, hopefully, with enough positive prayer and public awareness, something worse from happening. Apparently, they want to try to take Joy's parental rights away forever. Termination of parental rights, where this little 7-year-old girl will be put up for adoption. It's so preposterous because, it shouldn't be happening over her mother's resistance to a drug.
Yeah, this is what's really disturbing. Like you said, they're out here worried about Trump's tweeting, but when there's genuine suffering to like children and parents, and like there's lives that are actually being harmed from, neglect or intent or whatever the case may be, like nefarious actions, they get away with it. And not only that, like they're not stripped of their job, they're not stripped of their credentials.
None.
Like, people during the pandemic were stripped of their credentials, like 12 years plus of school as a doctor or lawyer, whatever, because they refused to get jabbed, or they refused to promote jabs. But they're not concerned with the people who are genuinely doing harm to children. You got to ask ourselves, like, they have to be on the tape, like on the payroll of someone who has a vested interest in this happening to children, because like you said, the media is not reporting this. There's not any medias in America really that are mainstream medias in America that are reporting this problem, but it's happening everywhere, and it's happening in the courts. It's not like this is, trafficking on the street. They talk more about the southern border trafficking than they do the judges trafficking the citizens of the US. So it's like we have it coming from one end on the southern border. We have it coming from the northern border because Congress come out and said that it's actually now everything has moved from the southern border to Canada operations, the northern border, which is worse. And now we also have the judges. So it's like we're getting attacked at every angle. No one's talking about it to the mainstream public through the mainstream media so they can actually do something to fix it. And then they're pointing their eyes in the wrong direction so that they can continue to be confused while they continue to torture and abuse them and debilitate them. It's like this is a treason on such monumental corrupt levels. Like, it's unbelievable to my mind, and it makes me so upset because it's like there's things that can be done. People like this woman and her child don't have to suffer, and people should be standing behind them. Like, I'm glad people are going to come and support her for that, because people need to realize if you let this slide by with this lady, you're next.
You're next.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
You're next. Exactly. Know your rights. Understand how to protect yourself. Understand how to defend yourself. How to conduct offense when needed. It's the interesting thing about this particular case too. There's so many things, but I spent a lot of time covering censorship, covering mandates, vaccine injury awareness, fraud within the government, deception within the government, just absolute refusal to acknowledge or follow through on the law for public records requests. so many things like that. But in that process, we found a great network of doctors, lawyers, nurses, citizens, podcasters, whatever else, like you guys. Like, this network has grown, and it's kind of laid a foundation for a positive resistance. So when this case came along and I needed an expert, a psychiatrist or an attorney or whatever, I had this Rolodex ready to go of all these trusted friends who I know to be honest people that I could call. And so that's been part of the method of a counterattack on the lies in this case, was using this resource built from COVID and the vaccines and the science.
One thing I want to mention as well, and it is good because everyone needs a team of people. You can't do anything without a team. Like, it's exceptionally difficult when you're isolated. But one thing I want to mention as well is that a lot of the ways that they are doing this to children in the court system is the way that they traffic immigrants through the immigration system. And I know because, like, when my dad was a whistleblower in 2020, I came over to the US. I'm Native, so like I'm American Indian under the Jay Treaty. And I was processed when I came through and treated as an undocumented migrant. They took all of my documents, concealed them, violated Title 18 laws, put me in immigration detention, and then forced me to live with single American men and trafficked me for years. And the way that they like pass people through the system and the way that they do the loopholes and like mess up documents and then they can't find them and all this kind of stuff is the exact same thing I'm watching them do to children in the court system with like all of these families. The same loopholes, the same process, the same failures. Oh, I don't know. Oh, it was a mistake. Oh, it's incompetence. Oh, like this person just doesn't understand. And then, oh, that person got transferred there and there, but we don't have the documents here and that person moved, so we don't understand. Like, all the different things that they're doing is exactly the same the way they treat the undocumented migrant children. And it's a very dangerous game that they're playing. A lot of people really need to understand. A lot of people couldn't understand why it was happening to me because like I'm Native, I'm fully documented, I got all my American IDs, even social security number and everything. But they didn't care because once they process you through the system a certain way and they lose you, especially if they're setting you up to be go through adoption, because that's what they were doing to me even when I was a kid in foster care, the Ward of the Crown, where they were passing me from home to home until they were ready to finally try to adopt me out. The same thing. It's the same process, and it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous game.
Yeah, the immigration system is a huge mess. Yeah, I think about that a lot, and it's like when I lived, in California, the immigrants that would be illegal would come in, and they wouldn't be political at all. The last thing they wanted was attention, so they would keep their heads down. They would work hard, and they had values that actually were very aligned with middle America values, God, family. And, the difference was the Democrats were the ones that wanted to say, hey, no, let them stay here. But they didn't really want them to become active, vocal citizens because then they would abandon the Democrat Party. So it's been kind of, it's a really unfortunate thing to watch unfold. And I don't know what the outcome is on that. I know that it is hard now to find trained, skilled workers that don't have, immigrants working for them or illegal or whatever, however you want to classify it. It's there's a brain drain that occurred here. So, if you were in California and you said, hey, let me find some white guys to cut my grass, it ain't going to happen. It doesn't exist. Sorry, but it's just not how it is. I mean, it's like a known thing. If they got rid of all the illegal immigrants in California, you'd have everything would be overgrown in a week. So I don't know. That's not my wheelhouse, so I'm going to shut up about it.
it's not as easy as people think it is. People think that, oh, you just round them all up and kick them out. Like,
Right.
okay, well, that's great, but what happens to the economy? Sectors are going to
Oh, yeah.
collapse because this was something that built up over a long period of time. And even some of the restrictions that they put on things were done in a specific manner. The way this they're going to have to go through a lot of things and make a lot of changes because the processes that they've had set up was designed by a lot of these people to get away with whatever they're doing, and they need to be closed up. So this is not going to be a 1 year fix. It's going to take time to start rectifying, but they need to do things in the meantime. All the criminals out. I don't care. Like you came over here to commit crimes. That should be the highest priority. Get all the criminals out, then start managing those stuff because once you clean up the streets, it'll be a lot more manageable to figure out what to do when you don't have all these people running rampant all over the place. But what I kind of wanted to circle back on is that COVID. What I noticed with COVID, um, it allowed unprecedented trafficking. This is exactly what they're doing, even within the state level. When you're taking a child unprovoked, you're making money off it. You're causing financial exploitation. You're increasing the chances of sexual exploitation. You're driving that parent into a position of forced servitude because they are going to do everything they can to obtain their child and their safety, even if it drives them into poverty. And it's done that to most parents. So you're looking at peonage and involuntary servitude because you're this is literally state sanctioned trafficking. If you look at it, you'll see the elements of the crime, money are changing hands. Then now you start seeing some of these cases going across state lines. This is becoming very problematic. But COVID gave an unprecedented mechanism for them to do this because it made people financially destitute to begin with. It wore them out. And then it was breaking down families and it made it easier for them to come in and take the children. And then there's less resistance because they're worn out. And then it's easier for them to indoctrinate the children. Like I've been around human trafficking almost my entire life. I grew up in Winnipeg, which is like the Detroit of Canada, and everywhere was bad. Like it didn't. I had parents that had hundreds of millions of dollars in the '80s, and friends that were eating ketchup sandwiches. We had a wide range of them, and there was criminality everywhere. And actually, the richest people and the poorest people understood the criminality more than the average person, which is because you'll see they're rich criminals and poor criminals, the gangsters, they're all the same. Some wear suits, some are on the street corner slanging crack, but they have the same type of mentality on how they come together to do their nefarious end. But the COVID, it was like a pimp beating a woman to put her on the street. The trauma allowed the indoctrination to come in, and this is the biggest issue. This is like a massive operation in human trafficking, the wealth transfer. You're making slaves out of people because they are dependent on the state or whoever for their very existence in a way that was never done before. This needs to be rectified and the brakes need to be put on. And people need to be held accountable.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know we're kind of running up here on time. I mean, we could talk about this for a while.
Yeah. No, I've been doing so many interviews. Like I think I've got about 10 this week.
Oh wow.
So it's been, it's a race to Monday, but let's hope that this event Monday and the case becomes a focal point that initiates change and an improvement in the system, and that all parties learn from it, and we can turn people who were doing wrong things into people who do right things. It's easy to say throw them all in a lake of fire, But a lot of times people are misguided. You know, they've swallowed the blue pill, and it's just poisonous to them now. So maybe this can affect some positive change in Florida, DCF, and that can trickle into other states, maybe other countries. I love, as Elon says, the most interesting story is usually the one that happens. I really do think a 7-year-old girl with weak lungs bringing down an agency of a state is a pretty great story.
Oh yes,
So
and
that's my hope.
I don't think that most people are evil. That's really not. We looked at when they started to do some of those experiments on giving the people the shocks and so forth, that the average person, when an authority figure comes in, will do a lot of things that they wouldn't normally do.
Milgram experiments.
Yes.
Actually, I think 250 watts is enough to kill people, and 100% of people went to 250 watts, and then 400, it was like 67 or 68% went to 450 watts of shocking, where they didn't hear the fake people scream anymore. So the authority figure of power, you know, on the pressure on the mind of people, yeah.
It was both.
It's true.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I've dealt with a lot of these, sheep in the world, and unfortunately, there's still so many of them. I actually said to a friend I hadn't seen in a long time the other day, I was like, "Look, I thought about sending you my movie and stuff because we talked a little bit for the first time in 10 years, and I was like, but if you've lived your life, the last 5 or 6 years, and you haven't seen what's been going on, and you haven't even been motivated to take a peek at my movie that you knew was there, okay, maybe you're not supposed to see it. Not all people are shepherds. If you had all shepherds, you'd have no sheep. But that's my feeling. We gotta help the ones that want to know, understand it, and then we can all work together to protect the ones that just can't.
Yes, and I think what needs to be happening here is that people need to see certain things, because especially with men, we don't talk as well as the women do. I grew up around 5 women, and I'll be the first to admit it. We need to see stuff, right? We're more visual, so that will help the men, because women seem to get this more when you explain it to them. Men, not so much. So when men start seeing things, then they're like, "What?" And
let's fix it.
Yes, and so they need to see that. So it's going to take some of us to step up and so forth, and then more will come. And hopefully that some people will turn away from the wickedness, because God desires not the death of the sinner, but that all should come to repentance. It doesn't mean necessarily everybody gets to get away from their consequences, because some of them that deliberately knew what they were doing and pressuring others, you need to face consequences, because those are the ones that were doing the most wrong, and they were putting people to fear for their lives, fear for their families, and threaten and coerce, and that's unacceptable, right?
Yep. So, absolutely.
So where can people find you, and how can they help you?
First place is brokentruth.tv or brokentruth.com, but brokentruth.tv is my Substack. That's where I do a lot of my interviews. I'm also on YouTube as Broken Truth, and I'm also on Twitter. That's my big handle. Right now it's Broken Truth TV. And my nonprofit is Magic Feathers. It's magicfeathers.org. And my production company is Magic Feather Inc., inc.com. So that's pretty much the places. I try to be on all the platforms, but really it's brokentruth.tv and X are the ones that kind of take up most of my efforts.
All right, that's good. So everybody, I have some of his links here. I have his X and the Broken Truth TV. And then your documentary is in the description if you're watching on Rumble, Vocal, or on Facebook. You'll see that there. You can connect them with X. But I'm going to close here with a prayer because I mean, this is
Great.
always good and we need that. And you can stick around a little bit after. I just have something to mention to you that would be good for the upcoming event. And then I'll give my daughter a final thought. All right. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy. We thank you for the hope you have given us and the privilege of calling on your name and coming before you in the grace that you've given. And Lord, I ask of you this day to watch over Joy and her daughter Kenlee as they're having that situation come up, and help that justice will be done and that the children will be protected. And bless the work that John is doing and others like him, and that people will come together, that they will stand together to protect the children, that we can raise the remnant to finish the work until we see you coming in the clouds. This is my prayer in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Dad, for the prayer as always. And thank you, John, for joining us, sir. I appreciate it. It was awesome. And hopefully we'll have you
Yeah.
back in the
We
future for
finally
some updates. And yeah,
we finally connected,
go ahead.
Kaysha, after 3 years.
I know. Finally. Better late than never, innit?
Pretty
So
much, yeah.
but yeah, we guys, go check him out. You know, the work that he's doing, it's important, and definitely keep an eye on Joy and her daughter as well, and you know, go out and support if you can for the event there. And yeah, because like I said earlier, it's not a matter of if it comes to you, it's a matter of when, if this doesn't get dealt with. And if, you know, what happens there in Florida is able to, you know, make a difference in Florida and then cause a ripple effect for the other states, that's what we want to have happen. So, you know, this is what we need to do. We got to stick together. And yeah. So thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys in the next one. And to my dearest Karis, until we meet again, my friend, and we will ciao.
Thank you.